Hi everybody and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be studying lesson number 14 titled Drugs and Alcoholism. Well, this conference is very important because it shows the urgency of eliminating these two defects since they make any progress in the inner work impossible. And second, to teach people affected by these two defects to regenerate themselves and eliminate them from their psychology. Remember that if you have any question, you can leave it down there below in the comment section, and we're going to be answering any question you may have. Also, in the description of this video, we are going to be finding the access link to the WhatsApp group and the Telegram group. In those groups, we're going to be sending the material of the conferences, the charts, and also the audios of the conferences. And also you can communicate directly with the administrators of the groups. If you have any question, well, you can ask through the groups. Well, also we're going to find in the description of this video the access link to our YouTube channel. There you're going to find all the conferences. Well, in this page we're going to find all the conferences also. And well, first we are going to be talking about alcoholism, okay? We're going to be talking about the alcohol defect, and for this we need to know alcohol. Alcohol is one of the 10 most evil demons on planet Earth. It is represented as the head of Medusa, cut off by Perseus. This manages all the processes of alcoholism and drug addiction within this planet. It is one of the main demons on the planet that causes the most degeneration in the race. These, as you can see here, are his mottos. He is the owner of the planet. We can see how alcohol is found in all places, areas, social classes and cultures, parties, family gatherings, religious reunions, everywhere. Even children nowadays have access to alcohol. After being something even illegal a while ago, it has become normal, then mandatory, to the point that a person who doesn't drink alcohol is considered rare. Strange. He's also the thief of the solar atoms. This defect damages our sexual energy and leaves it in an evolutionary state that doesn't allow us to create. He is also the father of corruption and misfortune. We can see how many misfortunes happen due to the effects of alcohol, how many lives have been affected due to tragedies or accidents caused by people under the effects of alcohol. We see that every day in the news. He's also the father of degeneration and vice. You can see how many aberrations and degenerations do we reach because of it. It leads us to do the most perverse things when we are under its effects. He's the destroyer of families and homes. We can see how many homes and families destroyed because of this terrible vice, how we make the people around us and our beloved ones suffer because of our vice. In all the ways possible, physically, emotionally, how we become even negligent with them to the point we prefer taking our money to drink alcohol than to feed our family and so on. He is the cause of misery and ruin. We can see how people lose their properties, friends, and family because of these defects. This demon lubricates the wheel of samsara. That is to say, it makes the process of returning in the wheel faster, cause all the tragedies, and the person ends his cycle of 108 existences in a more accelerated way and goes in a more precipitated way to involution. Okay, his kingdom is that of the infernal worlds. His homeland is Earth, and his slaves are all human. Alcohol drunkenness is the opposite of the Dionysian drunkenness, something we're going to be talking about in a few. The demon alcohol takes over the human body cunningly and slowly until finally one day he plunges us into the abyss of drunkenness and madness. We all know about the problems on a physical level that this vice generates. It damages the liver, our brain, all our system, we could say, is related to many cancer disease. But in this conference, we will be breaking down the damage on a spiritual level and how it prevents us from achieving any progress. So let's start by saying it ends with the possibilities of self-realization. Well, with each drop of alcohol, the energy or wealth of the microcosm man, which is us, disappears, since it contaminates our energy. In sex, it leads us to the worst baseness, to all kinds of infrasexualities and fornication. It prevents reaching scientific chastity, prevents igniting the sacred fire and raising the kundalini. It revives dead defects because that contaminated energy in an evolutionary state has the ability to create negatively, and it creates more defects in addition to reviving those that we have eliminated. It increases weakness and lack of will. So we can see that in a drunken state, one is more influenced by any suggestion to do anything that we wouldn't do in a sober state. It prevents concentration and causes distraction because it damages our mind and our ability of think. It stimulates fantasy for this same reason. It develops irresponsibility and non-compliance. People with this vice tend to put aside their responsibilities and duties and prefer alcohol consumption to fulfill their responsibilities. It ends with religious, family, and society principles. It weakens the ethical sense. In a drunken state, evil things do not seem so bad to us. We are capable of doing terrible things because it inhabits the personality, which is something that contains in many circumstances our defects from acting in a raw way. It ends the human part of the individual. It animalizes us. It influences crime, poisons the reason to destroy the race, and also it prostitutes religions. As I said before, we can find it in many religious rituals. It is very important to know that with alcohol, we have to be radical. Any transaction, diplomacy, or negotiation is doomed to failure. We cannot say that we are going to give it up little by little, or that tomorrow we will start working on it, or that we will only drink it on special occasions, or that we will only drink a glass or a drop. If we do this, we will never be able to eliminate these treacherous defects from us, from our psychology, and it will not allow us to advance in our inner work. Well, now we're going to be talking about the drug defect. But first, we need to know that psychological unfolding of man allows us to demonstrate the crude realism of a higher level in each one of us. When one has been able to verify for oneself directly the concrete fact of having two men in oneself, the lower one at the common and current normal level, and the higher one in an octave higher, then everything changes. In this case, we try to act in life according to the fundamental principles that we carry in the depths of our being. So the psychological unfolding teaches us the reality of the inner man. The outer man has his way of being, has he is a thing with multiple attitudes and typical reactions in life, a puppet moved by invisible strings. The inner man is the authentic being. it is processed in other very different laws, it could never be converted into a robot like we are, like this other man. So no one could reach the second birth, be reborn, as the gospel of the Lord says, as long as he continues to live with the psychology of the ordinary inferior man. When we recognize our own nothingness and inner misery, when we have the courage to review our life, we undoubtedly come to know for ourselves that we in no way possess merits of any kind. Blessed are the poor in spirit, because they will receive the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit or indigent in spirit are really those who recognize their own nothingness, shamelessness, and inner misery. This class of beings unquestionably receive enlightenment. What I mean is that in order to enter the kingdom, the treasure of faith cannot be postponed. As long as psychological unfolding has not occurred in each one of us, faith is something more than impossible. Faith is pure knowledge, direct experimentation of the truth, of wisdom. Faith is direct experience of the real, the magnificent experience of the inner man. The inner man, knowing through direct mystical experience his own internal worlds, also knows the internal worlds of all the people who populate the face of Earth. No one could know the inner worlds of the planet Earth, the solar system, and the galaxy in which we live if they have not known their own internal worlds before. This is important, very important to know, because many people believe that they can have these types of higher experiences through mystical drugs. The drug addicts' extra perceptions have their particular roots in the abominable organ called Kunda buffer or Satan tail. The consciousness, bottled up among the multiple elements that constitute the ego, is processed by virtue of its own bottleneck. So we have many mystic defects, religious defects, fanatics defects, and they tend to manifest especially when we are in those states under drugs. So hallucinations of egoic consciousness are the same as hallucinations caused by drugs. Obviously, these two types of hallucinations have their original causes in the Kunda buffer. The drug addict turns vice into religion and plans to experience reality under the influence of drugs, ignoring that the extra perceptions produced by marijuana, LSD, morphine, hallucinatory mushrooms, ayahuasca, cocaine, heroin, hashish, ecstasy, tranquilizer pills, amphetamines, barbiturates, etc., are mere hallucinations produced by this Kunda buffer organ. Okay. Adding the effects that alcohol causes us, we will see that drugs annihilate alpha rays, which is the frequency of brain activity that allows concentration. So there is no connection between the mind and the brain. It also destroys neurons. It deteriorates our internal bodies. It produces sexual impotence too, and so on. Okay. Well, in the 60s, the age of Aquarius began, and the Dionysian wave begins to vibrate intensely throughout nature. This wave had the objective of promoting the voluntary transmutation of the sexual libido, enrich the mystical transcendental ecstasy. This wave had its negative pole, and the earthlings, for the most part, were not able to polarize themselves positively with such a wave. And there we see all that hippies groups that arose for those times and that promoted the use of drugs and sexual degeneration. The Dionysian positive pole handles subliminal sexual delight, sexual transmutation, the awakening of consciousness, objective knowledge, superlative intuition, the transcendental music of the great classical master, etc., etc. While in the negative Dionysian pole, we find sexual degeneration, infrasexualism of all kinds, homosexuality, lesbianism, demonic pleasures obtained through drugs, mushrooms, alcohol, hellish music like the New Age, etc. Dionysian ecstasy, samadhi, are evidently essential when it comes to experience. What is the truth, the real? Such exaltation is 100% possible through the technique of meditation. Through meditation, we can enter the heavens, the higher dimensions that are the sixth and the seventh dimensions of nature. We don't need drugs for achieving this. And this is not what we achieve when we use any one of these drugs. Remember, as I said before, okay, these experiences we have when we are under the effects of drugs are due to the Kunda buffer organ, okay? But psychedelia is a different thing to this state of samadhi, okay? Provoked by the positive pole of the Dionysian wave. This term, psychedelia, translates like this: psyche, which means soul, and delia, which means drug. So psychedelia is the antithesis, as I said before, of meditation, okay? Hallucinating mushrooms, pills, LSD, marijuana, etc., evidently intensify the vibratory capacity of the subjective powers, but it is obvious that they could never cause the awakening of consciousness and can't compare to those we develop when awakening our consciousness. Also, drugs fundamentally alter sex genes, and this is already proven scientifically. As a consequence of such negative genetic mutations, we can observe the birth of deformed children, for example, okay? So remember this: meditation and psychedelia are incompatible, opposed, antagonists. They could never mix. We cannot pretend that we are going to experience the real, that we are going to experience the superior things in this state of psychedelia, okay, being under the effects of drugs. That is not going to happen. What we are going to be experiencing are things totally subjective, okay, not the objective things, the superior things. Well, so how should these defects be eliminated? The first step towards any change is to have the willing and the encouragement to do it. We must have the most important objective of intimate self-realization in order to succeed in conquering these vices of drugs and alcohol. Also, we should apply self-observation. We need to observe in us each one of the desires and emotions we have in relation to alcohol or drugs, each one of the intellectual justifications for drinking or consuming drugs, each one of the acts of ill will, which are the things those defects want and lead us to do. For each one of the discoveries that we make through self-observation, we must beg the Divine Mother to eliminate that detail from us. By doing this, over time, we will begin to dominate the psychological defect, decreasing its strength and fire until its complete elimination. Sometimes the defect is very strong because we've fed it a lot. Every time we consume, we feed it, and that makes the defect stronger to dominate us and enslave us. So it will be necessary to imprison it. For this, we will use the practice of business with the law that we saw, that we learned in the previous conference so that they imprison it and it doesn't cause us problems in the physical world while we are working on its elimination. Well, in general, the cause of falling into idleness and vices is unemployment. Okay, one of the ways to enter the unlimited occupation is the sacrifice for humanity. If the person is regenerating, helping others by giving them this knowledge so they can also eliminate this defect and regenerate, by the law of correspondence, they will have the right to be helped internally. Okay, so we have many ways to sacrifice for others. Remember that we can teach others this knowledge, we can share this knowledge to other people, invite them to the conferences, and so on, okay? In people who have fallen very deeply into drugs, it is also recommended to take them out to sublimate in the early morning hours between 4:30 and 6 a.m. to a park, even for half an hour, and breathe fresh air. You have to accompany them because alone they cannot, in case, well, it's a relative or a friend, okay? When the person shows signs of recovery, they need to be taught sexual transmutation, which will allow them to recover and activate new neurons, which the work of birth in suprasex and psychological death, we go on one hand creating the existential bodies of the being, and on the other eliminating the various details that used to enslave us, okay? And also practicing sacrifice for humanity, we are going to be generating the merits to be helped and to pay the karmic debts of these psychological defects. So we are going to have to practice the 3 factors for the revolution of the consciousness. It is also recommended when beginning to help the drug addict, or if we are talking about ourselves, if we have this vice, that we leave the circle of friends with one we share these vices, and we join a new group. For example, a new group of related to the people of this knowledge, to these conferences, thus generating strength and receiving support to advance in the elimination of this defect. If we continue talking and going out, reuniting, meeting with the same people, they are going to try to make us consume again. Okay, they are going to pressure us to consume again. So we need to go away from those people. It's very necessary, okay? Well, to speed up the process of death of the defects, it is worth reflecting on some aspects that will make us go deeper and see more details and understand better the harmful effects of these defects, and therefore generate more strength and wisdom to go against it. We must reflect on how far has alcoholism or drugs taken us. Okay, what things have we done under the influence of those defects? Also, we need to reflect on the damages that we have done to the physical body. To what extent did drugs or alcoholism influence our degeneration? Also, the bad relationships that originated with other people. Spouse, children, our parents, our friends, etc. Okay, with our work, with our colleagues and other beings that surround us. Also, the bad relationships that originated with our own being or with oneself. Okay, we were studying in the first part how the drugs and also the alcohol damages our sexual creative energy, and how it revives the defects. Of course, it's going to be damaging our inner work and generating bad relationship with our inner being. Okay, we are not going to be doing any advance in our inner work if we continue consuming drugs or alcohol, even if it is a drop of alcohol. Okay, because remember, it contaminates our energy, and when our energy is contaminated, well, it's not going to be able to raise up our spine through the practice of suprasex. This degenerated, this evolutionary energy due to the consume of alcohol, well, is going to take us or make us to create involutionary things. This energy, as it cannot go up our spine through the practice of suprasex, well, is going to tend to get out. It's going to lead us to fornication, and when we fornicate, well, we are going to be getting all the bad effects of it. Okay, reviving the defects we have already worked on, eliminated. So we're going to be having to do the work again of eliminating them. Yes, creating new defects also, and feeding defects we still have. So it's very important to reflect on all that. Okay. Also, we're going to be reflecting on the amount of psychological conflicts that attracted to us in this existence. How many problems and conflicts, okay, we have, not due to the consumption of alcohol. Okay, well, thank you all very much for being here. This has been today's conference. Remember, as I said in the beginning, if you have any question, you can leave them in the comment section down below, and we're going to be answering your questions there. So before saying goodbye, I'm going to invite you to join us at the next conference, where we will be learning the difference or to differentiate between the actions of the ego, the personality, and the consciousness. Very important, because we are going to be learning what the ego really is and all the names it has, it has received through the time. Also, we're going to be learning what the personality really is, how it is composed, our personality, and what is the essence, what we really are. Okay, so until next time, and thank you all very much. Bye.